I'm going to call this general committee meeting to order. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, hands up for this. All those opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have no delegations this evening. Consent agenda, we have nothing on the consent agenda. Advisory committee meeting minutes, we have 4 items. Does anyone have any comments or questions on any one of those items, or can I get a motion to approve A1, 2, 3, and 4? Someone like to put forward that motion to approve them? Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. No one wants to pull anything from that or ask a question? Okay, seeing, Councillor Gilliland. Which one?
I actually had raised it before. I know that we got an email that was a delegation for tonight. Is that something that we are addressing this evening from an email that we got? It said delegation for next GC. For, I think it was in regards to the Kitimat or sidewalk.
And Mr. Clark, you can chime in if you want, but I think that they might be putting that on for next week because it will be on next week's agenda. So they'll actually be coming in and being on video and actually doing a full delegation, and we'll be able to ask questions as well. Is that correct, Mr. Clark?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's actually the April 5th GC, or excuse me, May 5th GC when the report is on the agenda.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. So we'll address the delegation then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other comments or questions on any of those items before I call the vote? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We'll move to items requiring discussion, our regular agenda. We move to R1, which is 276 and 310 Hartwell Way, non-program park design, with recommendation to receive, to have the concept plan option 2 be approved, and that staff be directed to proceed to detailed design and tendering of the project. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Gilliland, second. Sorry, I didn't see that. Councillor Kim, second. Any comments or questions on this item? Councillor Gallo. Oh, 1 sec. There you go. Oh, there you go. Sorry, Councillor Gallo.
Okay. I had a couple of questions. I wanted to know through you, I guess, to Mr. Downey. Just find it. Did we go through a public kind of consultation like we normally do?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Mayor, we went to the Community Advisory Committee with the drawings, and they provided the community input for these 2 particular concepts. And we did that on October the 10th.
Councillor Gallo?
So we didn't do a survey or anything to the public?
Mr. Downey?
No, we didn't do a survey of the public. There are approximately 18 to 20 homes adjacent to the park, but we did not do a community survey in this particular area.
Councillor Gallo?
The only reason I asked is I pulled out the capital projects sheet. In the project description, it does say that park will need a parks will need to generate a concept park design of the space in consultation with the surrounding residents through survey, public open house, similar to any new park development. So when we approved this, that was part of the description. And I see it as part of the alternatives to the recommendation. So, you know, unless someone can tell me that it's not common for us to do that, it certainly was part of the project description. We approved the project, and with any park in any neighborhood, I think it's pretty important to survey and to ask the residents in the immediate area to see what their comments are. So I think that should be done prior to any approval.
Do you want to put an amendment on the floor, Councillor?
I will in a moment. I just have two other things. I also noticed, and just out of, you know, curiosity, I know we've mentioned this before many times in terms of the orientation of rectangular fields, and that the preference is north-south facing, and that's one of the reasons why we're not proposing, or staff rather isn't proposing, to have a rectangular field on this property. I don't know about the size. It does mention whether it's too big or if it's not big enough. But considering, you know, we all realize the lack of rectangular fields in the town, and I don't know how in depth we looked at this, but sometimes beggars can't be choosers, and I do know that Highland Field is facing east-west and probably one of the most used fields in town. Not the preference, but certainly the case in that field. So if that's the only reason why we're not looking at a rectangular field in there, I think we should reconsider. I don't have a problem if it's facing east-west, or even certainly lacking in tennis, some type of facility on that park. And thirdly, as we all know, we item 6 on our agenda speaks to the new DC, I guess, regime and how we collect. And this park is funded entirely by DCs, I think, partial from Growth and New and partial from Parks DC. As you've all read the report on the DCs, to me, there's some red flags that are being raised there, whereby it mentions that we may have some difficulties based on this new regime to collect in a timely manner, or at least when we would like to collect DCs. And it does mention in the report that some of our projects that are funded by DCs could be impacted. And some of the remedies would be shifting the funding to tax base or debt financing. And this is, to me, one of those projects that it's in front of us. We don't know what the result of this new DC regime is going to provide. And I'm bringing caution to council to perhaps we should have a thorough review, not only of this, but all of our capital projects, to see where we stand and how this new DC regime is going to impact on our capital projects. So to me, if we were to move this forward, I definitely would recommend we do a survey to the residents. Secondly, that we at least take a look at the possibility of having a rectangular field or tennis court, explore those options on that park. And thirdly, not only for this, but a comprehensive review of all of our capital projects, particularly those that are funded, DC funded. I'd like to hear everyone else before I put any motions forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Any else has any comments or questions? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Marcus. I just kind of wanted to express that the Community Advisory Committee, I felt that the members there were somewhat excited about the park itself. There was a few concerns about the neighboring residents in conjunction to the dog park, but I think that they've addressed those issues by creating some more barriers there with some of the vegetation. But overall, I'm excited by the fact that it did kind of feel a need in Aurora, in the sense that we don't really have parks that have the natural kind of exploratory playgrounds. And I know that's something that we're newly trying to integrate into our parks, which I thought was very interesting. And I had seen some of the structure when I was at one of the conferences, and I was really happy to learn that that was somewhere where we were going. It also means that it can be also very inclusive for accessibility as well. So it adds that feature. And I understand a community garden space is something that the residents have felt that we don't really have a lot of, and this was also providing that. And I guess through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Down, I guess, were residents just like describing a need for some of these features that we're putting in this park and providing in this park in this area? Is that something that the kind of research that you guys have done and presented?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So staff have two council directions with regards to park development from previous meetings. One was they wanted community gardens identified in any new park design so that could be discussed as far as integration into the park. And the second was we had identified the need for another dog park within the master plan. So we implemented some of the elements that were within the master plan. And the master plan didn't identify the need for additional tennis courts, which is the reason the tennis courts aren't in the particular plan. We used the Community Advisory Committee because that was, we felt, the best tool to get an overall view of the community and what elements were required in the park. We thought the meeting went quite well, and we received some good feedback. So the only concern with going out to the residents at this point is that it leaves the Community Advisory Committee some comments somewhat up in the air, and that if the community was looking for something different, then do we then go back to the Community Advisory Committee and obtain their comments? So we were trying to use the tools that we had within our ability in order to get as much input as we could, and that's one of the reasons we presented two different concepts, so that the advisory committee at least had some other options that they could look at.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I do really like the fact that you included some information and correspondence about how the proximity of this new park is to the elementary schools and how it can be utilized as educational tools in conjunction to the wildlife park that we have. And it does seem to kind of make sense in the sense that it isn't the ideal spot for a field strategy. But if we were to pick somewhere that was going to encompass some of the need for the community gardens, the wildlife and such, that this wouldn't make sense. And I'm happy with the design. I really like the design moving forward. I think it was a really good spot and choice and where to do it. I like the fact that you identified when the pickleball and tennis courts were erected and whether or not that was conducive. So for me at this time, I'm happy with option 2 as recommended by staff.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson, did you want to speak or did you put down your hand? You're fine. So, Councillor Gardner. One sec, Councillor Gardner. I don't know why I cannot unmute you for some reason. There you go. Go ahead.
Thank you. I lost you for a while, so I haven't heard the comments on the park, and I also wanted to raise a couple of the A's. So would I be able to do that at the end of the meeting?
Sorry, I didn't get that. A few of the which?
A couple of the A items.
We did pass them, but you can obviously ask questions under new business. A few questions, that would be fine.
Okay, but I will say that we need to figure out how to make some accommodations. Like I just completely lost you. So I'll take responsibility for that, but if we're zooming, especially in the learning curve. Anyway, I didn't hear any other comments about the park. Were there any other made besides Councillor Gilliland's?
Councillor Gallo made some comments as well.
Could I know what they are, please?
He thought that we should look at all our capital expenditures and projects moving forward in regards to the changes in Bill 108, in regards to DC collection for Park and Loo. I guess that's in just what he said. Councilor Gallo, do you want to go a bit more? You feel that it should go out to the public as well? I can add on and on, but
Okay, I get the gist of that, and I actually agree. But with respect to comments on the park, and I did speak to staff about this, I think one of the reasons for this park was to provide parking for the nature reserve. And then staff looked at what else could be done in the park, but I think there was a real desire to have parking. With respect to the community garden, community gardens are usually on a transit route. I understand that we have it in our mandate to put in community gardens, but it's a very strange place for a community garden. I would say a very inappropriate place for a community garden. Anyway, staff said that would have to be approved anyway by the residents in the community, but I would like to ask council, I mean, we're talking about a neighborhood park and we're putting in a community garden. To me, it doesn't make sense. So I really can't approve either of the designs on that basis. It's not good enough just to put something somewhere because we have to put it somewhere. It has to be in an appropriate place. With respect to what Councillor Gallo said, can staff say when those two school parks will be up and running?
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, we have no input from either board with regards to when they see those two school blocks develop.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I perhaps missed it in the report. When is this part designated to be done?
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Mayor, this evening we are looking for council to approve the concept. We would then look at engaging a landscape architect to come up with the detailed design and specifications and tender document. We would then put it out for public tender. So you wouldn't see construction until 2021.
Councillor?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, is this something that our town staff can't do? Because they've got a very lovely design in place right now.
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Mayor, it could be something that we would do. I haven't discussed it with staff. I don't know how much additional time it would take for staff to do it. We are not in the habit of doing a
Right.
park magnitude with specifications and tender documents, but it's certainly something I could ask. Perhaps it's something we could look at when we are trying to put together an RFP to determine a landscape architectural firm that we would be interested in doing, and then comparing that to how quickly they could do it as opposed to how quickly staff could do it.
Thank you. And also, this area is, the residents are in place in this area, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, they are.
And they've been-
Yes, they are. There's approximately 18 to 20 homes adjacent to the park.
Councillor?
But this park wouldn't just be accommodating those small number of homes, would it?
Mr. Downey?
No, not at all. It's one of the reasons that we put it along Hartwell Way. It's a very major thoroughfare. We look at this park in combination with the two school blocks on the south side of Hartwell Way as an overall public space concept, and look forward to seeing those two schools being built.
Councillor?
Thank you. I can't approve of it at this time because of what Councillor Gallo said, and I think we have to look at everything in light of that. But also, I think I want to look and see what parks are close. I don't know. Ada Johnson isn't very close to you, isn't to Mr. Downey. Is this the only park in this area?
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Mayor, there's actually a site plan in the report, and you'll notice the subject park. There are John Bale's Parkette is just to the west of the site. There, Ada Johnson and Thomas Coates Park are actually on the other side of the valley. It has a stronger connection to the wildlife park than any park at all.
Mhm. The other side of the valley doesn't count for. At this point in time, I would have to vote against it. But I would like to know from staff if it was just left as an open area with parking, and maybe a small area for the to explain the wildlife center. I'd like to know what the costing would be on that. Is that possible for you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey?
Mr. Downey, is it possible to get a rough estimate for next week?
So just so I understand, all you'd want within this area is a parking area.
An
And
open space, and maybe a grass area.
It's already an open space, so.
But I mean, with some sort of surfacing that kids could play on it.
Oh, I see. So you'd like it graded and sodded.
Yeah, just, we could always turn it into a more intensive park.
Yep, we could certainly give you a cost for that if council directs us to do so.
Counselor?
Would council direct staff to do that, please?
If you'd like to put an amendment on the floor, I could ask for a second.
I just want to know how much it would be if it was just like without all the amenities that are in there now. Do I really need a motion for that?
I mean, you could just put a quick amendment and we can get a
Okay.
second here.
Okay, I would appreciate knowing, in light of Councillor Gallo's comments and the economic climate, the kids need a place to play. What the cost would be just to make it a surface and parking.
Someone like to second that? I'm not seeing a seconder.
Okay, okay, I'll just have to vote against it then. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim.
I mean, my view is for the choice of option one. Given that this is a neighborhood park, it would make sense that the local residents that are adjacent to the park have a say. You know, from the last park that was constructed, Thomas Coates, you know, things like community garden was turned down by the local residents, and there were other you know, suggestions and recommendations that were made by the local residents. So I think it's imperative that before we build anything, that we you know, want to, you know, survey the residents who stand to benefit the most by this park. Certainly in terms of washrooms, I know that the park that's just adjacent and north of the Sark, you know, we had complaints about the location of the washroom. You know, when they purchased the new home, there was no indication of a washroom being present within the vicinity of their homes. So, you know, I had a couple of complaints about that, and you know, just having any kind of recommendation of a public washroom in a neighborhood park where everyone lives within a walking distance of the park, you know, I kind of question that. So it would seem to make sense to, you know, have more public consultation before we put the shovel to the ground. And with regards to the community gardens, we know, you know, back in 2015, I think it was, regards to McMahon Park, you know, you know, it's roughly 50-50, and we ultimately decided to go against the community garden there. And certainly here, you know, we have to understand the, you know, the composition of the local residents in that neighborhood. And, the majority of residents there are of a certain culture, and, do we consult them to see whether they want a community garden? Is it within their, their thinking that it's something that they're going to contribute to and enjoy? There's a lot of, positives in a community garden, including, nutrition, better nutrition, community bonding and integration and reducing any kind of existing tensions that may exist. But there's a lot of things that could also, go against the community garden being present there. So, for me, I would prefer option one, which is to have community consultation.
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, just to confirm, while this did go before the Community Advisory Committee, was additional input just limited to those homes that bordered onto the property?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to my knowledge, we have not surveyed the adjacent residents, but we went directly to the Community Advisory Committee. We felt that was the best platform to deal with this particular park.
Councillor?
Thanks. And, while I support that process, I think what the challenge in my eyes is that because we're advocating for community gardens as well as the dog park, which will bring people from, elsewhere in Aurora, it becomes more than just a neighborhood park. It becomes a community park. And I would agree that we need just to ensure that the residents in the area are supportive of it before we spend money on a detailed design. And so, I'm happy to endorse the concept in principle at this stage so that we can have not necessarily an open house anymore, but at least reach out to the community in the surrounding area and get either their endorsement or their feedback before we proceed to detailed design and tendering. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gallo, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to be really clear. I wasn't commenting on either of the designs that were proposed. Both of them could work perfectly well. My only issue is, have we explored all options, and have we properly surveyed the very community that this park will be affecting? And unless we don't find value in our capital projects sheets, where very specifically it said we were going to go out to the community and ask them their opinion, we either do it or we don't put it into the capital sheet, because that's what I bought into. I read it, I agreed with it, and I voted in support of this. So it's one or the other. If we put it in there, we do it. If we're not going to do it, then let's not put it in there. In terms of my maybe even larger point, I'll read item 6, the financial implications. It says the freezing and deferring installment payments of DCs will negatively affect the amount and timing of DC collections, cash flow, and the town's ability to fund growth and new projects, which this is. As a result, the town may experience instances where its revenue from DCs are insufficient in meeting its identified growth in capital commitments. And it says one of the options, tax levies, dollars, or taking on additional debt. I think it's appropriate in this environment to push pause for a bit, to ask our financial experts to advise us. I'm not saying don't build this and other capital projects that are DC funded. I'm saying let's take a closer look. Let's first identify exactly what we want in there. And to be honest, the whole thing could be a community garden, because I love that concept, and I think it's fantastic, and we should have much more of that. But it's the residents in that area who, in my view, need to dictate that. So for now, I'd like to at least put an addition to the motion that we do as we said in our capital projects, and consult with the residents through a survey or public, open public house to gauge their input.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you want to put that amendment forward?
I would, yes.
I'll let Councillor Humphreys speak first and I'll come back to you. Councillor Humphreys.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm all for the concept of the park for sure. Councillor Gallo's resident feedback and then make our final decision. So if we can insert that step there and come back to council with that information, we'll be in a better position to understand the moving forward. That's all, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you. I agree with the consultation. And with respect to the dog park, it was explained to me that there would have to be residents who would want to take on responsibility for the dog park, just as we have in our other dog park. So I think that would have to be explained to the residents at the meeting. It's not going to, I mean, the town will take care of it to a certain extent, but there will have to be resident participation as well.
Okay. Correct. Thank you. If no one else would like to speak, I'll ask Councillor Gallo to put forward his amendment.
Staff go out for public consultation on park design prior to approval.
Would someone like to second that? Councillor Humphreys, comments or questions to the amendment? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Just for clarification though, when we go out to the public, we're going to present this design as the concept and ask for feedback on this design, as well as what other things they might like to see or is missing. Is that correct?
Councillor Gallo, are you just saying in general, go out to the public and just ask for the feedback, or do you want to be specific with this option and present this option to the public?
Well, what I really want is for us to have followed the process that we always follow, which is, unfortunately, we have to take a step back, because typically we'd go to them and ask them, I assume Mr. Downey can correct me, what they think, and then we come up with a plan, unless the standard process is to come up with a design and show the residents and have them tweak, add, subtract as they see fit. I just want to follow the process that we always follow.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Can Mr. Downey clarify the process then?
Mr. Downey?
Certainly, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The process that we understood is that council wished us to develop a community advisory committee to advise us on what they felt should be in all different aspects with regards to park design. So we have followed the process as far as we are concerned with regards to ensuring that the community advisory committee was brought designs, was given an opportunity to make comment and provide those comments. If you wish us to go to an additional step now, which is then also going out to the public, are we then not going back to the community advisory committee, or I'm not quite sure what role the community advisory committee would play in this park design after that point.
Thank you, Councillor.
My concern though is just that, we move forward, then we hear from the residents that there's strong opposition and we've wasted money on the detailed design. And so I'd rather err on the side of caution and get public consultation, but I'd rather present them with something rather than a blank canvas. That's my perspective.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to the amendment? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. From what I remember, when we were deciding what to go into the park, our pickleball park, we had a huge open house, lots of people who came. And I think the design was set up and then the public were invited to comment. That's my remembrance anyway. And it is their neighborhood park. I think they shouldn't be presented with a fait accompli.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just talking about process, and if we are going to go to public consultation at this point, is that a proximity to Mr. Downey of households from the actual parkland?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we'll normally do is take a radius of the park and put a flyer in or contact all the residents within that particular area. As I say, there's not a whole lot of residents in this particular area. They're mostly along the east border, west border. To the north is a woodlot and Hartwell Way, along with the 2 school blocks. So we're talking about very few residents with regards to adjacent to the park or would have a direct influence from the park.
Councillor?
And within this park, you had said in the report, there's 2 elementary schools that are adjacent. So is that part of the reason why there is not a ton of residents backing onto the park?
Mr. Downey?
Yes, when we picked this park, we took Hartwell Way as the southern border. The north border is a woodlot, and on the other side of Hartwell Way, on the south side of Hartwell Way, are the 2 school blocks. So it's one of the reasons we selected this particular site for this park.
Councillor?
Thank you. I mean, I have no problem going to the residents that are within the proximity. I still like the design, and for what it was worth. I understand kind of going to tender and trying to design detail and costing. You want to make sure you do it correct. So I have no issue in doing that. Will this come back to the community advisory committee for once we get that feedback? Johnny? Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Downey?
Mr. Downey? Mr. Downey?
I'm sorry, that broke up. I don't know if it broke up for anybody else.
It broke up for me as well. Councillor, could you just repeat that?
I was just saying how I don't have an issue going to the surrounding residents. There's not that many there, so I assume it probably wouldn't take so long. But will this feedback come back with a new design concept or anything presented back to the community advisory committee again?
Mr. Downey?
That wouldn't be our understanding, that we've already gone to the community advisory committee. So we would, if council wishes, we can go to the public. We would then bring back the comments that we received from both the public as well as the community advisory committee, but it wouldn't be our intent to go back to the community advisory committee with the comments we received from the public.
Councillor?
Okay, once I understand. So if this was to move forward, there was other plans and concepts moving forward, it changed kind of the dynamic of the park in general. Say for sake of example, at that point, would the community advisory have any input from then or no? I'm just trying to understand process here. If the design was going to change quite a bit.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and that's one of our concerns with process. Council was talking about the previous one with Thomas Coates. We didn't have a community advisory committee at that time with that particular council, and so we went to the residents. We now have this new platform and new process with the community advisory committee, and so that's why we felt that it was most appropriate to go to them. Our concern is going back and forth and trying to get some resolution. So my recommendation would be the community advisory committee has seen the design. They've provided some comments. We would go to the public, find out if there's any additional comments. We would provide both comments from the advisory committee as well as the public to council, and then council can give us any direction coming from those. My concern is if we go to the community advisory committee and they have certain comments, then we go to the public and they have different comments, and then we go back to the advisory committee and may not necessarily agree with the residents' comments and want to go forward anyway. It leaves us in some peril here. So we haven't got a problem going once, but we do have a difficulty going back and forth.
Councillor?
Gotcha. All right, thanks for the clarity. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim for the first time.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with the amendment. I think going to public consultation is the best way forward. And I think similar to what staff did, 3-4 years ago with Thomas Coates, I think people like to see more than one conceptual idea. So if we can put forth 2, 3, 4 concepts out there for the public to look at, I think that'd be ideal. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey, you talked about in the report about potentially there being 2 schools. Now, would the characteristics of or the composition of the current concept be any different if the potential schools would not be there? Because I recall 3-4 years ago when local residents were looking to bring a new school, and there's certainly a new high school that's going to be built in the next couple of years. York Region School Board said that the numbers with regards to new student migration into Aurora was relatively flat. So if the schools did not come to fruition, would that change the concept design at all, or would it still go forward as is without even without the potential schools being built adjacent?
Mr. Downey?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the reasons we selected the site as it is and on the other side of the road as opposed to adjacent to school sites, because one of the concepts with regards to 2C was actually being adjacent to the 2 school sites. The park design is not influenced by the school sites. We have not put elements in the park in order to address the needs of any school. If the school goes in, we felt there was opportunity, certainly because it is a gateway into the wildlife park, that this park could serve some of that purpose as an education for outdoor education for the students. But if the schools weren't there and there was something else developed in those sites, it wouldn't change the design of the park or the impact of the park.
Councillor?
Thank you. And if we can include in the concept designs the inclusion of the washroom and without the washroom, and I guess the washroom, as Councillor Thompson pointed out, it largely depends on whether it becomes a community park or a neighborhood park, and what drives that would be the composition of the park. So it may be that we may need 3 or 4 different scenarios there. So if we could have as many different concepts, because certainly a washroom is a big deal if people are coming from different parts of Aurora. I think that'd be significant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This becomes more and more unclear to me. Through you to Mr. Downey, I'm looking at the map. Is this park supposed to accommodate all of the people south of the green area and north?
Councillor, I'm just going to ask you to stick specifically to the amendment, which is you refer it back to that we have to go to public consultation. If we're going to talk about the item if we pass or defeat this amendment, we can go back to that discussion. This is specific to the amendment if we go out to public consultation.
I'm trying to be specific, but I need to know how many people is this park going to serve? Because if it's meant to serve a handful of homes, then going out to public consultation is not in order. But if it's going to be serving all of the people surrounding this or in this green area, that is a lot of people. So I just would like to know the intent of who this park is serving. How many residents?
Mr. Downey?
Dear Mr. Mayor, normally what a park, according to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, is a neighborhood park will service a radius of approximately 0.8 kilometers. So if you drew 0.8 kilometers, it would include a lot of people. However, it would also have other parks within that that radius. The comments that we received primarily are from adjacent residents, and they are concerned about the impact that it has, or the park has adjacent to them. We can do a public open house and open up the radius, but we primarily hear from residents who are adjacent to the park and are concerned about any impacts it may have on their property. And as I said, that's about 18 or 20 homes. But the normal radius or impact of a park is about 0.8 kilometers.
Counselor?
Thank you. So about a 10-minute walking distance. So it could draw a lot of people, but they won't probably come out to comment. So it's a strange situation. When we did the design, I'm calling it the pickleball park, but you know which one I mean, the 6-acre park. We had a design from the Parks and Rec Committee that went through the Parks and Rec Committee, I believe, Mr. Downey. And we presented the design as it was to the residents. The design that council agreed on to the residents. And they were there to comment on that particular design. The community garden was removed from that park. But my understanding is not there so that the residents can design a park. It's there so they can give feedback on what we think would be appropriate in that park.
Councillor, you're correct. For Thomas Coates, we had a concept that was presented. We actually had a special meeting of Parks and Rec. Everyone came in.
Yes.
The comments be known, and then staff went back and took those comments and redesigned that concept, and then it came before council for approval.
Okay, and that was a very big, that was a 6-acre park. But if we have said that we're going to go out to the public, we should go, I believe, go out to the public as the amendment says. But I think that we shouldn't have 3 or 4 designs. We should have 1 or 2 for the residents to comment on.
And I'm going to agree with you. I totally agree that this should go out to the public. But we have 2 designs, concept designs that have been presented to us from staff. And I think it's as simple as using those 2 concept designs and present them to the public and get their feedback on them.
Okay, thank you. Is that what the actual motion says?
No, the motion says just to go out to public consultation.
Oh, okay. So the park design.
Councillor Gallo's next, so maybe he'll.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo. Second time.
Thank you. Just 2 points. I hope I was clear that this isn't something that I've come up with out of the blue or something that we haven't done before. I brought it up because it was part of our capital budget sheets. It's described in there, and I'll read it again. Parks will need to generate a concept park design of the space in consultation with the surrounding residents through survey, public open houses. It's right there. That's where I'm getting it. I'm not making anything new up. And I'm pretty sure that the advisory group was in place when this was written. Secondly, in terms of numbers, I would agree there's probably about 11, I have the map in front of me, that actually back on to the park. But I just counted just on the north side of Hartwell Way, well over 100 homes that easily would be using this park. And I haven't even touched the south side on Roth Street. So easily at least 200 within a half a kilometer, 500 meter radius would be in very close proximity to this park. To not ask them their opinion, I just don't know. I'll leave it at that. I mean, we're in a bit of a predicament. My preference would have been to have gauged, maybe with a design with the public, and then gone back to the advisory committee and had a final kind of thing before council. But we can't do that now. So I'm happy if the 2 designs concepts go to them, an open house, a thorough discussion with them, a concerted effort to have the public come out actually and participate as much as we possibly can. and then have it come back to council. That would be my view.
Okay, Councillor, did you want to amend your amendment to say that have those two concepts be presented at a public consultation?
I don't disagree with that. They should have something in front of them, and maybe they can tweak it, add, subtract. That's perfectly fine. I don't know at what point, and I know we have a week, or at least until the next council meeting. I do want to address my other point. I know it's not part of this amendment, but to thoroughly review our finances, particularly when it comes to DCs and the impact it'll have on any of our capital projects. I'm happy to bring that up when that item comes, but I do not want to leave that hanging.
Okay, thank you. So did you? I just want to make clear so we understand. So did you want to make that change to the amendment that's on the floor right now, that the two concept plans be presented as part of the public consultation?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Clerk, can you get that for us? Is the seconder okay with that? Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll just put it up on the screen. Just 1 second here.
Okay. Is everyone good with that? Councillor Gallo, you good with that?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Humphries, you good with that? Okay. Seeing no other comments or questions on the amendment, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Back to the main motion as amended. Is there any other added comments to that? There's only a few of you that haven't spoken a second time. If not, I will call the vote on the motion as amended. I'll just wait for Mr. Clerk to get that up on the screen. There we are. So all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, Council, we will move to the next item. The next item is R2, request for information regarding construction and operation of an indoor baseball training facility on the Hallmark lands. Recommended to 1, to receive, 2, that the Director of Community Services be authorized to issue a request for information regarding the construction and operation of an indoor baseball training facility on the Hallmark lands. Would someone like to move the recommendations? Councillor Gilliland, second. Councillor Kim. Councillor Gardner. You're on.
I think I lowered my hand, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay. No, you didn't. It was still there. So, but it's all right. That's fine. I won't count that as his time. So, would anyone like to speak to this? Councillor Gallo. Oh,
I just, well, apart from the fact that I still don't agree with a recreational facility on that land, but I'm desperately trying to, and no offense to anyone, trying to fix a problem. And I still don't see, particularly we're moving towards, even though we may not be spending the money, a significant capital project on our land. I really believe that we'd be restricting ourselves if we were very specific to indoor baseball training facilities. Not only the baseball part, but the training part. We're taking extremely valuable land where no games will be played, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I would reluctantly agree if it was to be changed to a multi-purpose facility where you can train baseball, you can have football games, you can have soccer games, you can have rugby games in that facility. I just don't know why we are pigeonholing ourselves to a training facility. First of all, the whole concept, and again, I didn't agree with it, but it was to have baseball diamonds to play games, to train and to play games. You cannot play games in this facility. We've removed a really big part of what this whole concept was. And I just can't agree with that. I mean, I don't know where this is going to end up because I don't know what's going to come forward, but at a minimum, can we be a little more broad if we are going to build an indoor facility there? Why not share that space amongst different user groups? I'm sure maybe it will be anyway, but why not from the start change it from a baseball training facility to a multi-purpose facility where you can have games in there in different sports? I just don't see the value in pigeonholing ourselves. There are people out there who I'm sure may want to invest in this facility, but not necessarily as a baseball training facility. And I think we'd be limiting ourselves if we only did that. I'd love to hear what others' view is. If there's nothing else, then I'd be happy to put that amendment and see how that flies.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland, did you raise your hand? No? Okay. Anyone else? Oh, Councillor Thompson. There you go.
Thank you. Through to Ms. McDougall, just so I understand, the intent of us going back out for a request for information was really built upon the proposals as well as some of the discussions that took place about really a third-party company or organization coming in and building the facility with very little of taxpayers' dollars. Was that not what the original discussion was? And is that not the intent of what we're doing here?
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. With regards to the direction where staff, where we've landed, why we're back here today with this report, is when we staff brought a report regarding the Hallmark lands and to build 2 baseball natural turf fields in January. At that time, there was a delegation that came and presented an idea of a potential indoor training facility. And at that time, there was a motion passed by council to have staff report back with more information regarding an indoor baseball training facility on the Hallmark lands. With that, we were waiting for the delegate to provide some more information on their proposal. In the meantime, we heard from other interested parties, third parties, that were interested in sharing what they could do on that property. So instead of bringing back and waiting for the one delegate's information, we felt we wanted to recommend to council to at least put an RFI out to seek more information about what other proposals are out there. Yes, we are being specific with an indoor baseball training facility because that was part of the council's recommendation in January. Our goal ultimately was to serve the baseball community, and that's what the Hallmark lands were planned for, and that's what staff would be seeking.
Councillor?
I guess my concern is that under financial implications, it still talks about the $3 million that's set aside for the budget of building 2 baseball diamonds. And I'm not necessarily supportive of that $3 million being transferred to the creation of a training facility. And so I'm concerned about going down this path with this, I guess, expectation that that budget would be rolled into the creation of a training facility, be it for a multi-purpose field, as Councillor Gallo mentioned, or for a baseball training facility. So perhaps Mr. McDougall could comment further.
Ms. McDougall? I wasn't sure if that was a question or just a comment. Ms. McDougall?
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, we were just identifying that there had been council budget put aside for the Hallmark lands and the development of 2 ball diamonds in the amount of $3 million. Certainly, any of these, the RFIs coming back will be providing a little bit of more information about what their scope of proposal would be. which would result in us demonstrating to council where we would still be required to invest versus the third party. Ideally, in our goal, we could set that out as an objective in the RFI and subsequently an RFP, that they would be expected to make it a win-win for the community in the essence, saving the taxpayers' dollars by building a complex. We could set that as a layer of expectation. So we were just in this report demonstrating at this point, council had endorsed $3 million towards the development of 2 baseball diamonds for this property. Wasn't to say that it needed to stay that way. It's just, this is where our current status is for this property.
And that was my impression of why we sort of shifted direction, not just because of the extra $1 million cost to build the diamonds, but because there were talk about third-party groups coming in and building something to the benefit of the community, that we were willing to entertain those proposals. So happy to continue going forward with the RFI, but I guess my expectation is that whatever proposal comes forward for future discussion will involve little taxpayer dollars.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim and then Councillor Gardner. Councillor Kim, 1 sec, sorry. There you go. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that was my interpretation of reading the report, was that not necessarily that the $3 million that we originally allotted last term was going to be carried over, but that we would be entertaining concepts or RFIs from the public that would be a win-win for the community. So certainly I agree with everyone that we want as few or little or no taxpayer dollars involved if possible. And at the same time, I don't want to, we can't go on forever to say that we're going to allot this property for baseball indefinitely, because there is a timeline for this, and I don't want to hold up other projects, to be fair to other groups. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall, how long would this RFI process be? When do you anticipate that this will end? And certainly we as council are no obligation to accept any of the 3 proposals. And in fact, we can certainly move to any other uses if we so desire. So through you, Mr. Mayor, can you confirm, Ms. McDougall, the timelines here?
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Working with our procurement department, we've already started to draft and get an idea of some of the queries or questions we would include. It's just now issuing that RFI, which would typically, once you issue, it would be 3 weeks or 30 days out and for encouraging people to participate. I don't anticipate the evaluation period being very long. Therefore, I could see being back to council in the second cycle of June with feedback.
Councillor?
Great, thank you. And to Councillor Gallo's point, I'm in agreement as well. We certainly want any indoor facility to have as broad as use as possible. Do we need to change any verbiage, or staff good with the knowledge that council would desire this facility be appropriate for a broad use other than baseball?
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Mayor, we can certainly use that terminology and encourage that type of participation in the RFIs. Our goal would be to encourage them to review our outdoor sports field strategy that was just completed, which identifies some of the higher priorities within the community, and encourage them to identify how they meet those objectives, and obviously also how to support the taxpayer by offsetting those costs to the taxpayer. So those can certainly be objectives. Happy to do that.
Great, and thank you. I mean, in hearing the first concept put out by the president of AKBA, it seemed like a good portion of the cost, if all of the creation of the indoor practice facility would be borne on the third party. And in talking with staff leading up to this, it seems like other parties have a similar concept in mind, or something favorable to taxpayers. So it's encouraging, and so thank you, Ms. Gillan, and Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner. And then I got Councillor Gill in for first time and then Councillor Gallo for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. The reason that we voted to use employment lands for sport fields was because we just had no other land. We had no place where you could put sports fields. And I don't think I have to remind anybody about the battle between soccer and baseball to use this land, because they both need fields. So if we're going to go and look at this idea, and the only reason that I agreed to go and have a look at it was because it came out of the blue and it sounded so interesting. But at the end of the day, as Ms. McDougall just said, we have to support our needs. And nobody wants to spend the money to do that, but we have to support our needs. And it doesn't sound to me like what can be put on by a private company can do that. I'd be so pleased if they want to put in an indoor baseball diamond, but we do need 2 baseball diamonds. So those are my comments. We'll see how this turns out. We just can't lose sight of what years of work that we did to get to this point.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland, first time.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say kind of something similar to Councillor Gardner, just that not to lose sight of what we actually, well, I wasn't on council at that time, but what council had voted for allocation of fields, which was 2 baseball diamonds. And I think from my understanding is that we've been presented with an opportunity, and that opportunity could save the residents for some tax dollars. And if there's opportunity, why not explore that? And that's kind of my understanding of this report. If someone was to come back with something indoor baseball related and there is an objective there that can go above and beyond, that's even better. And Ms. McDougall has made me feel comfortable knowing that those objectives could be stated, but it's not really the mandate of, I think, what we or what council had directed staff to do as far as what was allotted on that land itself. And I wouldn't want to all of a sudden forget all the hard work and research and everything that council and staff had put into kind of determining that's what it was going to be allocated for. But I'm really open to the idea of the opportunity. Maybe this came at a really good time. Things happen for a reason, and why not explore this opportunity that's being presented to us, and maybe something better will come out of it. And I think that we should be open to that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gallo, just before I go to you for a second time, I just wanted to say a few things. Yeah, when we dealt with this, it was quite an interesting debate back and forth, whether one-on-one or 2. Everyone knew what my position was at the time. I believed a multi-use sports field was better suited from my perspective, as I thought, more user groups, more organizations within our town would be able to utilize it, more value for the tax dollars. And so that's where I was at. But we did end up having a resolution. We did end up having an approval, and I still stand firm that I will support what the majority of council decided of the day. I think what was presented to us was for a concept for us to get value and not have to use tax dollars to build, because what was presented us back in January was for us to look at spending another $1 million in the budget to have those 2 baseball diamonds being built. But we were presented with something that would look at maybe lowering that cost for us, so we only have to build 1 and build a facility. Now, while that's being said, I would prefer to see this RFI go out in a multi-use type of training facility, because I honestly always believe that when you can have 9, 10, 12, 20 different types of sports organizations be able to utilize this training facility, there's more bang for your dollar. So I rather leave it open-ended for that and see that happen instead of it being specific to a baseball training facility. That might mean that some of these people looking at putting forward an interest within the RFI might not decide not to come forward, but I'm sure we'll get a couple and we can evaluate it. And then at that time, we can decide, I think, as a council, what we're going to do, whether we're going to move forward with some type of a training facility, or if that doesn't make sense, then we're going to look at those other options. Do we increase the budget, or do we just blow up the whole project? And I think those are our options. I think it's a pretty simple 3 scenario options, I think, for us when this finally does come back to us in June, from what Ms. McDougall's saying. So those are my comments. I'll just leave it at that. But Councillor Gallo, second time. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gallo, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm happy to see, I believe we're all more or less on the same page. And I'd actually like to put a motion forward to change that to a multi-purpose facility and remove baseball training and open the door to any other ideas, as well as a baseball training facility. It doesn't stop that from happening. So I'd like to put that forward.
Sure. So Councillor, you wanted to say that it'd be basically change it from just baseball to multi-purpose training facility?
I'd like to remove baseball training and I'd like to add multi-purpose.
Okay. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Thompson, thank you. Councillor Gallo, did you want to continue on that, or did you want me just to go to?
No, it makes sense. I think we all kind of said the same thing. This concept, to me, deviates from the original idea. And once this passes or fails, I would like to add something else in terms of kind of a master plan once this is done, because if a multi-purpose facility is built there, we still haven't accomplished what ultimately Council of the Day wanted to accomplish, and it is 13 acres, and a dome is not going to take up 13 acres. So once this amendment is done, I'd like to have a chat about a master plan, the balance of the property and what to do with it.
Okay. Councillor Thompson, on the amendment?
Yeah, on the amendment, I'm happy to second it and to expand the horizon to look at multi-purpose. But at the end of the day, I'm interested in getting the best proposal, and whether that proposal is for a single use or multi-purpose, ultimately we on council will decide which to go forward with. So, I guess through you to Ms. McDougall, with the motion, the way it's amended and written, can we within the document, indicate that whether it be single use or multi-use, either is fine. It's just whatever they submit. At the end of the day, we're going to determine which one's the best one to move forward with.
Mr. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we can identify that an indoor multi-purpose facility is one of our goals, but with the objective ultimately that as long as they meet the guidelines within our outdoor sports field strategy, and they can prove that or demonstrate that they also make this a financial win for the municipality, that'll put them in a better state for council's decision. So how they want and choose to prove that to you is up to them. But I think as long as they meet those objectives and recognize that council will ultimately make the decision going forward.
Yeah, I just don't want to preclude one idea over the other. I think they're both, at the end of the day, it's whichever is the best proposal.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland, to the amendment.
Thank you. I guess similar to what Councillor Thompson was saying through Mr. Mayor and Ms. McDougall, the language on the amendment to eliminate the indoor baseball facility and change it to multi-use, is that going to hinder the use of indoor baseball in a multi-use facility?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not necessarily, because indoor training or multi-purpose facility baseball can use, and even at the one presenter that came to council to present, they had a facility. Their initial proposal was a baseball type of facility, although they did intend for it to be multi-use. But it certainly would be limiting on games. I think up to age 14 could possibly have games inside. Otherwise, 15 and above would not. So it would limit the functionality of their proposal. But they had other benefits from it being practice facilities and training facilities throughout the rest of the year. So I don't think that it's that limiting. I think is the way we can word it would be general enough that these would be encouraging statements for people to be creative on how they can meet the objectives of the outdoor sports field strategy.
Councillor?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. To Ms. McDougall, would that still meet the needs of the baseball community based on the recommendations that was passed by council?
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Mayor, our recommendation of staff has always been 2 gaming facilities, 2 baseball facilities that can serve games. So in saying that though, if there's a scheduling matter that we could address and look at, if this site took over more of the practice type of concepts and uses by the sports groups, and the diamonds that would have otherwise been used for practices, we could turn them into more gaming diamonds. So we have to see how the proposal balances with the rest of the strategy to understand if it actually completes our need or not within or offsets the initial 2 baseball diamonds, which is what we were trying to propose for this site.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I guess my only comment to that, and I don't have a problem asking vendors to come back with multi-use purpose facilities. In fact, I think it would be of a benefit for them to be able to offer that, and obviously our community. I just wouldn't want to see it compromise the intent or the objective of what we're trying to do by meeting the needs of the indoor baseball community. So I just, with the amendment and the way it's worded, I just wouldn't want to exclude the fact that the priority is indoor baseball or baseball itself, but to also include it as options, which would include a multi-use facility. And I just want to make sure that that is what we're asking back of the third party, and not necessarily presenting, well, here's a multi-use. You can get so much use out of a baseball, but you get so much use of everything else. But within that baseball, are we getting what we want from it? And I just want to make sure that within that amendment, I would like to kind of see it kind of say, you know, an indoor baseball facility, training facility, and multi-use alternatives. So you're still not taking away from the main intent of what it's supposed to serve.
Is that a question, Councillor?
Would that be something that Councillor Gallo would be open to leaving that part in and just saying, keep the indoor baseball facility training and just adding to that saying and serving a multi-purpose use facility? So at least we're not taking away from the objective.
Councillor Gallo, did you want to answer that? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't, simply because we're already taking away the objective of the lands by virtue of the fact of building a dome on it. The purpose of the lands were to build, at least that was the motivation from previous councils, to build 2 baseball diamonds. So we're already deviating from that. I'm trying to fix this as best I can come up with, where baseball can use it as a training facilities, but it is not limited to only that.
So you're not open to changing it?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gillen?
Okay, well, Ms. McDougall, through Mr. Mayor, if with this amendment, is it suggesting that these vendors are only going to come back with multi-use purpose versus to include baseball? Because right now we're not even saying to include baseball. And council, again, I'm going to say this again, council had voted that we needed 2 baseball diamonds. And if we go out to request information for multi-use, that may not even include the need for baseball. And so that's Ms. McDougall, would that be something that we could be facing with this amendment?
So McDougall, before you answer that, Councillor, I'm going to just go back to what Councillor Gallo mentioned. Is I understand the initial use, and I agree it was 2 baseball diamonds, but it was never to have a training facility on there. And so if we are going to look at putting out a proposal for a training facility, and I think what Councillor Gallo is getting at is that we should look at multi-purpose. And what I'm hearing from Ms. McDougall is that doesn't preclude anyone from putting forward specific for baseball. And at the end of the day, as Councillor Thompson mentioned, we would be the ones that make the decision out of any proposal that comes in front of us. And so I'm not hearing that it precluded, but Ms. McDougall, if you wanted to expand upon that, or if I'm wrong on that, but that's my understanding from hearing the conversation so far.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in my belief and interpretation of what's been asked, that it'd be an indoor multipurpose facility, and additional, they would be asked to support how this indoor facility meets the objectives of the outdoor sports field strategy. In that strategy, it very prominently communicates that Hallmark Lands was destined for baseball. It also identifies that the community is in need and is short of baseball lands and baseball diamonds. So I think it's very evident within the strategy, as long as they're following it, that they would need to support baseball in some way within this facility. I don't think this, by saying it indoor multi-purpose, we're getting away from them having to appease that objective within that's highly demonstrated in the strategy.
Okay, Councillor?
Thank you. And that's exactly, thank you for clearing that up. That's exactly where the point I was making, and I was trying to get clarity on that it's something in addition to what we're trying to achieve. I didn't want to necessarily take away from it. I have no problem. I think it's great and advantageous to have something more multi-purpose. I just want to make sure that the objective was still there. So that's clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo, before I go back to you for a second time, I just wanted to add in, I would actually prefer that it says that that they're going to pay for the whole thing, and we're going to have that value to the residents. That's what I would like to see actually in this, in any proposal that comes back to us. But yeah, I'm in favor of the amendment as worded, because I don't believe it precludes any proposal for baseball coming back, as I mentioned. But I think we need this in there to ensure that someone would possibly come forward with a multi-purpose proposal. So that's why I would like to, I like the wording of it, and I'd like to see that move forward, and I'll be in favor of it. Councillor Gallo, Councillor Gartner for the first time. Sorry, Councillor Gallo.
Sorry, I snuck in there, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to repeat what I said before. We can't lose sight of the fact that this was to be for baseball. I support the comments of Councillor Gilliland. And from what I can hear from Ms. McDougall, baseball is not going to be lost in the shuffle of this proposal. So I'm very interested to know what they bring forward. And hopefully they will want to pay for it all.
That's the idea.
We're giving them land. Land is very valuable.
Yeah. Well, we can charge them rent as well. Councillor Gallo, second time.
Yeah, I'm happy to add that if you like, but absolutely, I don't want to spend one penny on this. In fact, maybe we can get them to build the other diamond as well.
Sure. I think we asked them that when he came with that delegation, did we not? We said, you want to pay for the whole thing. So hopefully we'll see what those proposals come back with, and maybe we'll get that. You never know. So is there anything else, or am I going to call the vote on the amendment? All right, calling the vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Back to the main motion as amended. Anybody have anything? Councillor Gardner, you wanted to speak? Nod your head because you still got your hand up. Yes. Okay.
Could the motion please be read again?
So yes, I will read it. The motion is that report number CS 20-011 be received, and that the Director of Community Services be authorized to issue a request for information regarding the construction and operation of a multi-purpose training facility on the Hallmark lands. That's what we just approved as an amendment. You're welcome. Point of order, Councillor Gallo. Oh, one sec. Sorry, go ahead.
My motion was to remove training. It was a multi-purpose facility.
Okay, fair enough. Well, and that's what we did approve. You're right. So if we can just remove that training facility, Mr. Clerk, out of that.
Training, leave facility in there.
I'll leave facility, training.
Here, Mr. Mayor, no problem.
Thank you. Ms. McDougall, did you want to add something there? I see you're waving your hand.
Just quickly, was it also to be an indoor multi-purpose facility?
Yes, it was supposed to be an indoor. So yes, we can.
Sorry.
Everyone's nodding their head, so we can change that. I believe that was the intent of what the amendment was. Mr. Clerk, did you get that?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, I did. We'll make that change as well.
Okay, so I'm going to just read it. It's that the Director of Community Services be authorized to issue a request for information regarding the construction and operation of an indoor multi-purpose facility on the Hallmark lands. Is that good? Everyone's got that? I will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, Council. Moving it along. We are moving to R3. Application for site plan approval for Whitwell Developments Limited, 157 First Commerce Drive. It's recommended, one, that report be received, and number two, that the site plan application file SP-2019-04 to permit a one-story daycare facility be approved in principle. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Humphrey, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Comments or questions on this item? Councillor Gardner. One sec, let me. Go ahead.
Thank you. Could I refer everybody to the site plan? I don't know what page it is.
It is. The maps start on page 10 of 15. And your site plans. It's page 13, page 14, and then you have your elevations on page 15.
Thank you. When I was looking at this, it occurred to me that the play area, the greened area and the play area is very close to Wellington. And so I'm looking at page 13.
Mhm.
And it says in the report that, hold on. The landscape screening provides a visual screen and buffer between the secured outdoor playground and Wellington. So what I would like to ask as an amendment would be that the vegetation that is put there would be sufficiently sized caliper of trees that would constitute a buffer for mitigating noise, but also gas fumes and dust, and that the comments be referred to staff for implementation. I don't know what kind of trees would be best. I don't know what height, but just having some bushes, for example, for screening, I think we could do a lot better than that for the kids.
Mr. Waters or Mr. Clerk, did we need an amendment for that? Because we would just be approving this in principle, or would you take those comments and then have it come back to us? I don't know if Mr. Waters wants to answer that or not.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We can take those comments back and work with the landscape plan to implement what the councillor has spoken to.
Okay, is that good, Councillor?
Thank you. And I have discussed this with staff. And I think it is understood that it's to be visually pretty, but also to be of benefit for the kids. And why not? Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Gallo. Oh, you keep hitting unmute and I keep hitting mute.
I don't touch it. My hands.
Oh, you don't touch it? Okay, well, I don't know why we keep doing it. It keeps happening. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Through you to Mr. Waters, just the resolution, and I'm fine with this question, be approved in principle. And is that because we are still analyzing all the documents that the developer has submitted?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Approved of principle means essentially that we've approved or council has given us essentially the green light to move towards an executed agreement. There still may be some outstanding matters that are minor in nature that need to be resolved before we proceed with executing the agreement. But essentially means that, you know, council has given us a green light to move forward towards that.
Councillor?
It doesn't mean that, sorry, it doesn't mean that we can't make some minor changes at this point in time. Such as what the councillor has suggested regarding the vegetation.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, all of the reports listed on page 4 have been reviewed and staff is okay with them.
Yeah. Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, council, we'll move to the next one. R4, Regional Council Composition Review. Recommended that report CS 20-005 be received. Number 2, that council provide direction as to whether the town consents to an additional member of the Regional Municipality of York Council for the City of Vaughan. And 3, that the town clerk be directed to circulate the town's decision to York Region and all York Region municipalities. Mr. Clerk, how about we just get a motion to receive so we can discuss and then we can give direction. So if I could get someone to put a motion to receive at this point, and then we will discuss what we are going to direct staff to do on this. Motion to receive, Councillor Gilliland, second by Councillor Gartner. Comments or questions? So just before, I might as well just let you all know, and I'm not sure if you're all aware, I voted against this at the region. I don't believe in adding an extra member of council. I believe you can accomplish the same representation by population by subtraction, actually reducing the size of council. So I was one of 3 that voted against this. So I just wanted council to understand that. I hope that you all agree with me, but I'll love to hear everyone's comments. So I'm going to go with Councillor Gallo first. I see him waving his hand.
I agree. In fact, the only resolution that I would put forward is to have Georgina reduce theirs to 1 and Vaughan can have that one, because that's never made sense to me. Their numbers don't reflect that. And if we can't have 2, why in God's name should they have 2? If the point of this is population based, well then Georgina, I know it's a long history there, but if Vaughan wants it, they can take Georgina's.
Councillor, and I can say that conversation went around the table there. There was lots, even the proposal that I put forward to reduce it to the 9 mayors. There was all sorts of different types of proposals put forward. Some of the easier ones were the one that you just mentioned, is to reduce Georgina, add it to Vaughan. There was another one to reduce Markham's by 1 and then give that to Vaughan, and that would even out Markham and Vaughan. There's no doubt that Vaughan is underrepresented when it comes to their population, because they're equal to Markham, but yet Markham has more seats. But you're correct, Georgina, in my mind, is overrepresented. But there's also the balance of the north and the south that some look at, and that's why they continue to back Georgina having that extra seat, is because they don't want the north to lose that extra seat. So that's some of the conversation as well, but fully agree with you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I mean, this is not the first time we've had this conversation. It comes up every few years. Previously Aurora said no, similar to what Councillor Gallo has said. I mean, the argument for Vaughan's always been representation by population. And if that's going to be the argument, then it should be carried through to all municipalities. It isn't. There still is some inequities there. That's why we've said no in the past. And again, I appreciate the fact that you said that there was discussion around the table, but it never seems to get anything more than discussion, at least not significant consideration. You look at the attached report from the region, and again, it just keeps going back to the same old rationale, the same old solution. Let's just give a seat to Vaughan, rather than really exploring and giving due consideration to the variety of options that are out there, and providing some, facts and some additional information so people can be better informed or at least weigh in on the discussion. But, I understand it gets raised at the regional table, it goes around the table real quick and people vote on it. But to me, if they're really serious about looking at regional representation and a bit of an overhaul, then let's have some serious discussion about the variety of different options. And then, we can weigh in. But if they're just going to keep presenting the same old solution year over year and hope that the answer will be different, it won't be from my perspective.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphreys.
After you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Thompson said it all 100%. I don't support this at all. And I would if they give us another seat as well. So Vaughn, if they need one, then we'll get one. I might think about it, but no, I do not support this at all.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems that, our vote is, in the best case scenario, our vote is inconsequential. And at worst, the interest of Aurora is completely ignored. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to, I guess, yourself, if ministerial intervention is required, what do you think would happen in your perspective?
If you want my honest opinion on what the province is actually looking for, I believe that the province would actually be a little bit annoyed and a little bit upset if we started adding to the size of elected officials. I think that they've shown a clear mandate through what they did with Toronto, that they believe that there needs to be reductions. And so if you just left it into the hand of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs in the province, they would say that you need to tighten your belt and you need to make some reductions, and which is what was proposed by some of us at the table. Unfortunately, those conversations got squashed pretty quick, and we ended up, as Councillor Thompson mentioned, back to the same old, just add a seat to Vaughan. And and I got to be honest with you, it was a quick conversation and a quick vote. The only people that really spoke to it were the people that were against it, and there was only 3 of us out of 21.
Thank you for the elaboration. And my view is that any solution for regional council seating has to reduce the cost base of the region, and certainly adding one, even though it's only one, adds to the cost base. And certainly in this environment, it exacerbates the situation. And so any solution has to be within the cost structure that it runs currently. So I'd be against this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner.
I support what everybody else has said, and I don't think adding is the way to even out the fairness of the situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right. Does someone want to put something forward as direction to staff? I'm assuming it's to that Aurora Council. I don't know, Mr. Clerk, did you want to help out that? Basically, that we deny adding the. I can't see the option number 2 because I just have it on my face agenda. So, does someone want? Councillor Thompson, I see you have it up in front of you. Do you want to say it?
I'll move the alternative recommendation number 2.
Thank you. Someone want to second that? Councillor Humphreys. Okay, so that is that Aurora Town Council does not consent to an additional member of the Regional Municipality of York Council for the City of Vaughan. And the third clause stays the same, that the town clerk be directed to circulate the town's decision to York Region and all York Region municipalities. Is there any other comments? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. I'm going to just add that I don't think anyone at the region is going to be shocked that we voted this way, because I kind of told them that ahead of time. I said I really find it highly unlikely that the town of Aurora will support this. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. That was a unanimous decision. So we will move to R5. It's the 2021 budget process and timeline. 3 recommendations, which are in front of you. First is to receive. Second is that the changes to the budget process and format be approved. And 3, that the proposed budget timeline as detailed in table 1 be approved. Would someone like to move and second the recommendations? Moved by Councillor Gilliland, second. Seeing no seconder, seconded by Councillor Kim. Comments or questions? Seeing none. I'll call the vote. Oh, Councillor Gilliland, did you want to speak? 1 sec, let me get you there. Unmute. Go ahead.
So I'm trying to get the view that's big and I can see everybody. Yeah, I just had a question. Well, comment, I think this is a great idea. And I like some of the examples that finance had brought forward about how the budget will be presented and how it doesn't necessarily carry over. We kind of see the budget on annual spending. So I think that's really good. So you don't have this lump sum of carried over approved budget. I just kind of wanted to know if there was any changes about the June 2nd public session meeting. I know that you're looking at alternative methods in order to gather feedback. And I was wondering if there was anything that you could share with council about some of those initiatives. Can you hear me?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have just started to consider what some of those options could be. Finance would probably be working very closely with communications to look at ways that we can engage the public virtually, because it looks like we're probably going to have to go that route rather than having an open public session. So we may look at ways to gather feedback through social media or through email or some other method rather than an open session.
Councillor?
Thank you. And as we're exploring these options, will it delay the process of our budget meetings kind of that are scheduled in October? Do you think that's going to affect anything, or should we be looking at any delays or expect any delays just for planning purposes?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. At this point, no, I would not say that would have an impact on the delay. Generally, a lot of the feedback we get is mostly from some of our cultural partners and other organizations. This year, being a very different year with the impact of COVID-19, we're probably going to get more feedback from some of the public, but we can probably predict what some of that feedback is going to be in advance. We do need to get started with the budget process and start looking at what the impact is going to be for 2021 and 2022 and see how we manage this going forward. So we'll want to gather that feedback around the same time frame.
Councillor?
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's the only questions I had. I think it's a great initiative. I like how everything's being condensed and put together, both the capital and some of the operating. So it's not confusing with some of the things that you have. So I really appreciate all the hard work you guys have put into this process. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. My only comments are that we should, not in terms of scheduling, but in terms of budgeting, really keep in mind what the impact of this pandemic is going to have on our future budgets. I know the treasurer had mentioned that. I'm very much interested in knowing sooner rather than later. And I'll speak to that in other businesses in terms of reporting to council on any help that we could get in terms of projections, in terms of how this is going to impact the corporation. But I'll mention that in new business as well.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, did you want to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this coming council meeting on April 28th, we are planning on bringing forward a projection on what COVID impact will be for this year, for 2020. We'll then start turning our attention to what the impacts are going to be for 21 and 22. A few of the things that are going to impact is the way we look at penalties on taxes for unpaid taxes, which will have a report coming forward in June. To the effect of how we're going to manage that for the balance of the year. And the other things that are going to impact is the growth. So right now, growth on residential that's already underway can continue for now, but any new growth has been stalled, that has not started. So that could impact our assessment growth, which would probably have more of an impact in 2022 than what it would actually have next year. So see, these are some of the things that we are starting to take a look at, and we are starting to look at some of the bigger items and what can we do for the next couple of years to keep the tax levy at a palatable level.
Councillor?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think there are other things that I'd like to see explored, like the impact on our user groups. We had the sports forum. You know, I really want to put our heads together and see what the impact is going to be on many different facets of the town, including sports and other things. We need to really think about that and see how we can help and what we can do to mitigate any of the problems.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor. And I think that's, you know, it's great that we have the roundtable on sports. Councillor Gillan and yourself are there, and you know that conversation went very well. We also have the community cares team, which is meeting tomorrow to look at our most vulnerable residents in our community, our seniors. And then we're also looking at what's going to happen with our business community as well through that. And so I think we've done a very good job of being proactive and getting a lot of these task force and teams out there to try to look at and have discussions on how we can, as a town, all of us together, working together to make sure that we mitigate any impacts on any parts of our community. So, you know, I think we'll work through it, but definitely I think Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel is going to get us the proper information that we need to make sure that we can make the proper decisions on moving forward, especially with what we're going through this pandemic. So definitely good points. Any other comments? All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And now for R6. Administrative changes to development charges under Bill 108 and Bill 138. Recommended that it be received. And number 2, that the authority be delegated to the treasurer to administer the charging of interest and setting of the rate pursuant to sections 26.1 and 26.2 of the Development Charges Act 1997. And 3, that a new development charge administration fee be approved for the processing and management of the requirements of Bills 108 and 138 to date. Would someone like to move the recommendations? Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Gilliland, comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I will, 2. Councillor Gardner, then Councillor Gallo.
Mr. Mayor, could you take Councillor Gallo first so I can find the agenda, so I can find the item?
Sure. Councillor Gallo. Oh, 1 sec. I did it again. There you go.
Thank you. I'm somewhat, to me, a lot of red flags have flown up as a result of this. I'd like to understand better how we're going to strategize in terms of, as I mentioned before with the previous item, managing our capital projects, specifically those that are funded by development charges. I'd like to, in a serious way, look ahead and try to understand what that impact is going to be. My preference is to act now in terms of any capital projects that we're able to pause, break up, do something with to mitigate the impact of this. I don't want to wait until, you know, we have a new park that we have to build or whatever it is, and a report comes before us saying, sorry, we don't have enough, or at least the timing of the revenue in development charges is not what we expected, and therefore a portion of it needs to be paid for by the tax base, or we need to borrow money to do it. I don't want to be in that scenario, and I'd like to get a sense from staff either now or in the very near future on how we can mitigate that. I suggested one in terms of the park that we were discussing earlier on, that we seriously look at projects like that and better understand whether we need to push pause and have a better grip on how this new regime is going to play out for ours and every other municipality in the province.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
For you, Mr. Mayor. So this is what a lot of the changes I'm proposing for the capital plan actually tries to address. Right now, we have in open and active capital, we have about $84 million in projects. So that's open and active capital where a bit more than half of that is not spent. And that does not include the construction for Library Square. So right now, we don't look at the capital as a comprehensive plan. And part of the challenge is when we see things like development charges and what our development charge forecasts are going to be more longer term, it gets a little bit harder to predict what the reserve balances are going to be over time. So by making these changes to the capital plan that were identified in the previous report, we'll actually start to cash flow and really understand when we need the development charge money to be able to pay for the capital that we're investing it in. For example, right now at the end of March, we have $15 million in development charges that are funded to projects that has not yet been spent. So that's money that's sitting in capital projects because we've pre-funded them. So again, these changes, it makes it a lot easier to do more projections going forward for development charges. It helps us realize how we can better manage our reserves and our capital plan over time. And it will help us get more informed on our decision making for should we or shouldn't we issue debt, and in which circumstances is it reasonable to actually issue debt for a project? Because we don't want to be going and issuing debt for projects where it's something that we do every single year. We want to be able to pay for those as they come. It's more for some of those bigger special projects that maybe come once every 10, 15, or 20 years. So these things will work together. And I think the way the capital plan comes together at the end of this year is going to provide council with a lot more information. We're going to see a lot of projects that have already been previously approved that we have not looked at in quite some time. And we're going to be able to see how much is outstanding and how much work we have to do, along with the projects that we're planning on doing in the future. And then we'll be able to take a comprehensive view of how we're going to manage the reserves over the timing of that capital plan too.
Councillor.
And that discussion is going to take place during the budget process? Is that the idea?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it will. It'll go through the budget process.
Councillor.
And projects like the one we were discussing earlier on this evening, do you see any value in analyzing the ones that are in the books? I don't know how many of that $80 million is funded from DCs, but any one of those similar to the one today, is there value in pushing pause, breaking it up, trying to better manage our capital projects as a result of this new regime?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take all those existing capital projects that are already being previously approved, and we're going to assign the cash flow to those. So we're going to actually identify when we plan on doing those projects. We may take another look at those projects, and some of them we may decide, okay, we're not going to do them next year. We may do them at some other point in the future based on what our constraints may be, whether it's the amount of staff being able to do it, or it's the funds available to pay for them. So we'll be able to take that comprehensive look at all the capital that's out there.
Councillor.
I guess one of my issues, at least urgent issue, is this particular project will be approved. I'm not sure what our meeting agenda is when our next council meeting, when we approve the GC recommendations, but within a short order, we'd be approving a $1.5 million park. Are you in any way concerned about that?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, I'm not concerned as much about a $1.5 million park. If this was something that we're looking at spending $10 million on, I'd be much more concerned. It's because the way we've handled our projects in the past is we have pre-funded projects. So the money is sitting there in these approved capital projects. So of that $15 million that I mentioned that are sitting in capital projects for development charges, that's pre-funded, that 1.5 million or 90% of that is sitting there as well.
Councillor?
And do you know what the reserve fund balances are for, particularly that one, the parks? I think 1.35 million is coming from parks development and facilities DC. Is that a healthy budget?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do not have the number on hand. When we look at development charge reserves and reserves in general, we look at them more comprehensively than just necessarily individual reserves as well. The timing of capital growth projects can vary depending on the different types of services that we're using. So we will often borrow between various DC's reserves. The reserve values balances do get posted on the internet periodically, and I believe the ones for the end of 2019 are going up shortly. I can find that out for you and get back to you.
If I could get that, that would be great. The other thing is part of the resolution. Recommendation 2 is that authority be delegated to the treasurer to administer the charges of interest and setting of the rate pursuant to section 26, and it goes on. I read through the entire report, and there wasn't, unless I missed it, and I stand to be corrected, there wasn't anything in there that told me why we have to give delegated authority to set the rates pursuant to those sections of the Development Charges Act.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the reason we're giving delegated authority is because the policy that we want to implement on the development charges is that the rate would follow the same rate that that York Region is using. So the rate that they're using is based on the non-residential building construction price index for Toronto, based on some analysis they've done on that. For administrative purposes, it's much easier to use the same rate as the region when calculating and applying interest rates to development charges going forward. So if the region was to change their rate, that way we would not have to come back to council and request the rate be changed again. And that way it would change as it goes forward.
Councillor?
So if we don't give a delegated authority, it would be another report to council, and we'd have a discussion on that rate.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it would. However, if the region did something which was unexpected, which I'm doubtful of, or the rate seemed to change substantially, then I would bring that back to council anyways.
Councillor?
Well, I'm sitting on the fence. I'd like to hear my other council members. As you know, I'm always hesitant, particularly if it's a quick report to council in terms of making those kind of decisions of delegating those things. So I'll list everyone else.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphreys, then Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment quickly, and I appreciate Councillor Gallo's concerns. In fact, his questions helped me solidify my confidence in the report. I feel that Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel has done a great job in terms of being proactive, and I'm less worried about the delegated authority to do some of the changes that we need to do quickly, so that we can address the DC changes as we go along. I think she's heard us loud and clear, Councillor Gallo, to your points, that, you know, understanding the DC reserves, where we're sitting in at the moment, is really important. So I just wanted to thank staff and Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel very much for this report. It provides, again, me the assurances that we're being proactive, we're thinking in these terms, and we're being, you know, understanding the environment today is very something like we've never expected, and I believe we're managing proactively. So thank you very much. My confidence level is quite high in terms of the suggestions in this report. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim, actually, Councillor Gardner, did you want to speak? I remember you had your hand up from the beginning. Did you? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a lot of interest from the public on Bill 108, and which was, what was that called? More homes, more choice. And on Bill 38, Plan to Build Ontario Together, not so much. But if I could ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, if you could just give the public, you'd be surprised how many people these days are watching this council meeting. I guess they don't have anything else to do, Mr. Mayor. You're supposed to smile. Okay.
I am.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, could you've got an executive summary here. Could you just, for the benefit of the public, and we're talking about DCs, talk about the effect that those two bills are going to have on the changes in how we collect the DCs and the administrative implications?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So a lot has actually changed since the original Bill 108 came out. There's been a lot of changes that have happened relating to the splitting of DCs into the development charges, and the community benefit charges has changed significantly since that period as well. So as you remember, back around budget time, when we were talking about the community benefit charges, it was going to include a lot of what we refer to as soft services. So this would be library, recreations, park equipment, not park land, was going to be moving into this new CBC charge. Well, that has changed, is now actually going to stay as part of the development charges. They are also removing some of the discounting on it. So we're actually going to be able to collect more of what those estimates are for our soft services. However, there are some changes that are happening in the timing of when we actually get to collect DCs. So the rates for development charges are going to be frozen once an application is deemed to be complete, until the time that we actually get to the point where the work is starting to happen. Then what's happening is there's a few different types of development. So there's 3 types of development that are actually subject to payments over time. So even after that point in time where residential would come in and have to pay their development charges, or office space, with the exception of our office space policy, would have to pay, there's 3 groups that would not have to pay immediately. So there is nonprofit, which will pay over 21 equal payments over 20 years. And then there is institutional and rental, I believe.
Yeah, it's rental.
For-profit rental housing. So those will be paid in 6 equal payments over 5 years. So there is going to be DCs overall, yes, they are going to get paid later, even those ones that we're receiving for residential development, and for those ones that are not in these stage payments. And then there's these other ones that are these payments over time that we are going to get paid over a much longer period of time as well. So we are actually looking to charge interest from that period of time from when their DC rates freeze until we actually collect them, and then during the period of time when we're collecting those installments.
So thank you. And yes, there have been a lot of changes. I just wanted to ask you, at the bottom of page 3, going to the top of page 4, about the additional requirements determined by the Planning and Development Department. And you say eliminate the time gap and rate discrepancy between the freezing and the start of the 2-year period. Could you explain that to me anyway?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Waters may want to jump in here. There is a period of time from when we actually receive an application until that application would be considered complete by the planning department. And it's at that point in time where it's considered complete until we get to the point which is the point at which the DCs are frozen at that time. This can take up to, I'm sure Mr. Waters could probably help me out here. Through the planning process, it can take some time to actually process these applications. Some of these applications can be very complex, and it's a matter of from when the DCs are frozen, they only have 2 years.
Right.
Mr. Waters, did you want to add on to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will help out my colleague as much as I can on the planning side. When we get an application that's submitted, we have approximately 30 days to review it and declare it complete. Many times the application is missing a report or missing a study. And so we have to refer it back to the applicant to complete that. The reason why we have a pre-consultation is to avoid that, but it does still happen. So we've been pretty good for the most part in having our applications complete once they're submitted, which again is within a 30-day period.
Counselor?
Thank you. Thank you. And then at the bottom of that page, I'm assuming that that's really what you've said, that by limiting it to 2 years, the developers are going to try and hurry up and complete their projects because it will be beneficial to them financially to do that.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So within that 2 years, that's the period of time at which the development charge can be frozen. So we are charging interest during that period of time, but if it goes longer than the 2 years, then it starts over.
So it becomes unfrozen and starts a whole new process?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, then they'd have to use the prevailing rate at the time.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Kim and then Counselor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've always had the idea that the DC legislation was about creating more supply, streamlining the process, and creating more capital for the developers, frankly. And so I was quite pleased to see in the recommendations that we include an administration fee. So I just wanted to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel about the admin fee. How many other municipalities are charging the admin fee? What is the admin fee? Is it something small or is it something substantial? And I'm assuming legislation allows for it, otherwise staff wouldn't propose that. I kind of liken it to the federal government giving us a 1% income tax break, and then the province increases their tax rate by 1%. It kind of nets out to be zero. So doesn't the whole creating an admin fee take away some of the savings or the streamlining of what the province is trying to do?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel? I just add if it's the region, they're charging a lot up for admin fees. So,
sorry, we are charging the region.
I say you know how I feel about the region.
Yeah,
admin fee. That's how I was just throwing that in. So, Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So other municipalities are charging an admin fee. And part of the reason for this is because under the new process with the freezing of the rates, the application of interest, and then also managing payments over time, this is much more administratively burdensome than what the current development charge regime is. So the region is actually proposing an administration fee of $1,500. Some other areas that we looked at, Durham is $2,400. Halton was $3,475. Peel was $2,000. What we did was we took a look at what our hourly rate is that we charge for a legal clerk, and then we estimated the number of hours it would take for an application. And then we that's how we came to the $1,600 fee that we've proposed.
Councilor?
Well, I'd recommend the higher end of the range, but thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson?
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the comments of Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. I think that she's providing some assurances for council that both that we can manage in the short term, and that her and her staff are putting together a well thought out plan to address the issues that are raised in Bill 108 going forward. And I certainly look forward to that. With regards to clause 2, I guess philosophically, I look at it. I don't even think that staff technically need delegated authority, although they are asking for it. at the end of the day, it calls for delegated authority to administer the program, the charging of the interest and the setting of the rate. Within this report, the policy for setting the rate is on page 5, and it clearly lays it out. And it points to things like, Statistics Canada as part of that barometer on how that rate's set. We've always said council's job is to set policy, and that this report sets that policy. It's staff's job to administer that policy, and I'd hate to be micromanaging this process. So I'm fine with Ms. Wainwright, Van Kessel, and her staff moving forward.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, council. We do have a notice of motion that will be dealt with at the April 28th council meeting. New business. I'm going to go around as you show up on my screen. So I'm going to start with Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Humphreys, do you have any new business? No. Councillor Gardner, do you have any new business?
One thing we spoke about this afternoon, and it arose to me, or was really pointed out to me because of a situation that happened this weekend. There were so many people out walking on the neighborhood streets that it was very hard to keep that safety distancing. So I would like to propose to council that we do something like, I mentioned it last time, what Calgary is doing. And we've got traffic specialists who are, very used to closures. And I would think that at least one lane of some of our main streets should be closed so that people can walk, they can keep the distancing, they can keep active. It's psychologically good as well as physically good. So I'm thinking maybe one lane of Yonge Street, we could start that and see how it goes. The residential streets north and south of Wellington were extremely busy this weekend, and the residents were pretty close together. I'd like to encourage them to walk by giving them a place to walk that gives them more distance.
Okay.
Now, do I need to make that a motion? Would you like to comment on that? I think that's something that you thought would be a good idea.
Well, I think it'd be a good idea for staff to look at and present us with what could be done and what they feel is it could be done, and then for us to, as a council, decide on those options that are being presented from staff. If I don't know, Mr. Downey, do you need direction as far as a motion to just basically look at the possibility of reducing Yonge Street by one lane to allow for to close it to traffic, to allow people to basically have an avenue to walk or cycle during this time? Do you need an actual, or could you come back to us at the council meeting with some kind of suggestion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, actually, that recommendation would come through.
I have a point of order.
I would make sure that the road barriers were put up.
Okay, thank you. Point of order, Councillor Thompson.
With all due respect, we've gone through this the last few times, and we said that anything of substantial nature requires a notice of motion.
Okay. And I'll kind of have to agree if we need a notice of motion. Councillor, if you can get it in, and then I would suggest that we could always waive procedure and actually have it dealt with April 28th.
Thank you.
And if you do need help writing, I'm more than welcome to sit down with you and discuss on what it would be worded, how it would be worded.
Thank you. Now, I don't remember when I mentioned, thank you. I don't remember when I mentioned it last time. I just was throwing it out there. I don't believe it was told to me at that time that I would need a motion or I would have done it. But I think, yeah, it's time sensitive. So
Okay.
Thank you very much. I will do that.
We'll take it offline, and I'll chat with you maybe tomorrow and we'll discuss that.
Perfect. I would like to mention Dmitry Menovich from the CIBC. When we were talking about supporting local businesses, he was right in there, all for it. So he is a branch manager for the CIBC. I would also like to, and we missed it last, was endometriosis month. It's not something that everybody knows about. So I would just like to say that it is something that put my daughter in a position of facing an 18-hour surgery. So it is not a trivial matter. And we just all need to know that it's not normal or acceptable for a woman to have a lot of pain during the reproductive cycle. Thank you. I'd also like to ask a question, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure exactly about this, but is the town involved in sending notices to landlords to reduce rent or to forgive rent? Is that
No.
something?
No, the town's not in, but I did out of my office send an email to every business in this town asking landlords that they at least have conversations and communicate with their tenants, because we were getting information from a few tenants. Many landlords have been very, very working with their tenants in looking at how they can work together on this through this difficult time. But there was conversations that some were not even responding to calls or emails. And so I put out an email asking that if you receive a call or you receive an email, do the right thing and at least respond. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to help. You can only do what you can do. We all understand that landlords are also in the same predicament. Some of them that they're, this is impacting everybody. But at least respond. And I sent that email on behalf of the office of the mayor, not the town.
So the email tom@maracas is the office of the mayor's email?
No, that's just the way the MailChimp service works. My MailChimp service works.
Okay, there was a little bit of confusion about that with some of the mail you sent out. And the other question that I got from a resident is, my understanding is that all the correspondence from the town and the mayor is put on your official mayor's page, or is it going out on your personal page? Not. We have official things that have to come from the mayor. Where do they go? Where is there a policy where they have to be posted?
As far as from a social media standpoint?
Yes, I think that's the intent of this question. Yes.
Social media, I posted on many avenues. I posted in groups that are for the town of Aurora to get the word out. I think that we always discuss here at the table, do we not, that we need to inform the public as much as we can. So I look at every possible avenue to get the word out to every member of this community.
So it would be on the town's Twitter.
I don't put on the town's Twitter. I don't have access to the town's Twitter. That is the town. That is town staff. I don't deal with the town's Twitter, town's Facebook page.
Okay. Thank you. I need to understand.
Just as each of you have your individual social media accounts,
yeah,
same as I have my own social media accounts. They have nothing to do with the town. Two totally separate things. If you're asking where the town puts out information, the town puts out information on their town social media. It's got nothing to do with
official information from the town goes on the town website, and anything that you or anybody else wants to say can go on any of the social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No one's telling you what you can do on your social media.
Except me, who says I'm really bad on it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councillor Kim, do you have new business?
I'm good.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson? No. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the financial reporting. I'm happy to hear that something's coming up for, I believe, next week. I don't know what it entails, but I did want to have a thorough analysis of many of the things that those focus groups are speaking about. In particular, at least the one that I'm on, and Councillor Gilliland, the sports community, and them asking for assistance, or at least putting our a good effort towards seeing how to mitigate any of the damages that they might be incurring, or how this is going to play out in the months ahead. I don't know whether staff is addressing any of those. I don't know whether it's something that we need to ask them to do, but it's certainly something that we need to address and put our minds towards, for many reasons. Obviously, to help out the sporting communities, to help out the residents that are waiting to see whether or not they register for sports or not. There are some organizations who have already spent a lot of money on equipment prior to the season starting, because that's what they normally do in anticipation of many people, children registering for the programs, and that never happened. So they're out a lot of money. I just want to make sure that staff is putting some thought towards that, and see how if we can in any way help out.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, did you want to throw in anything there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the forecast that we were looking at working on is the impact on the town's finances. So how much it's going to be impacting the user rate and the tax levy budget for operations. We figure if we provide that information to you so you can see what the overall impact of COVID-19 is on the town's finances, then that will give us a better understanding of what our options and what we could do to help support other organizations.
Councillor?
Yeah, that's fair, and I'm looking forward to seeing that and see what can come out of that. Have we looked at all of the user groups across the board, perhaps even canceling their either fields or rooms that they provide services to, or any of the facilities that we rent out? Is that part of the financial impact?
I think I'm going to go to Ms. McDougall on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the cancellation and closure of our facilities, we have already acted on providing refunds to all of the sports groups that had rented either ice or fields during this closure, that those refunds either have been already issued or on their way back to the sporting groups. As it relates to those that had extended seasons canceled, like the end of hockey that went right out beyond our closure, yet the national bodies canceled those sporting activities and events. We technically have a policy of 20% requirement of min fee if they go beyond that cancellation fee. We've waived that, therefore they're getting their full fee back, whatever they rented their field or ice for. Similar to meeting rooms, if they had meetings scheduled, they have, within that time frame of our closure, they have received those refunds or are about to receive refunds.
Thank you. Councillor?
I guess we can continue the discussion. I know we have more meetings coming up, and I'll look forward to the financial report. When, through you, I guess, to Mr. Duran, will we see the agenda for the next meeting?
Mr. Duran, when will we see the council meeting for April 28th?
Mr. Mayor, the agenda is scheduled to come out on the 23rd of April.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland, new business. Do you have new business? Yep. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to give a shout out to staff. I had spoken with Mr. Nadarozny a couple days ago just about consolidating some of the information on the COVID-19 town website, because there's been so much information that's come in a flurry and so quickly that it's kind of been on ad hoc and just kind of placing it there as quickly as possible, trying to get as much information out there. And I kind of specifically asked for more like an FAQ kind of section where residents can go and have a place to go and ask some questions, and they can see exactly some answers, like, can businesses defer their tax payments during COVID-19 as an example? Can I pay my property taxes online? What are the community services I can get help? And we just recently got an email around 6 o'clock saying that these changes were made. And I've just want to say great job, because it's absolutely fantastic. And I'll be pointing all my constituents there to get all their questions answered there, because they've done a fantastic job. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for consolidating that information so quickly and making it clear for our residents. So I'll be using that as a point of reference for residents in Aurora to kind of go to get their questions answered. So thank you. Second, Councillor Gallo had kind of sparked something when he was speaking, and he said something about the capturing all the user groups in our town. And I was just wondering if we have given any thought, or if it's part of any of the groups going forward about the arts and culture, and are we doing any kind of support towards that user group? I guess through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall, is there anything kind of in the works right now to where we're offering any kind of support group discussion around that?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this time, our manager of Library Square, actually, who's overseeing the Cultural Partners Group and the Future Dialogue, has had some inquiries and query information and questions regarding that. He's more than happy to be part of a group going forward if council wishes to pursue that, and certainly support where we feel we can. So just seeking additional direction from council, and we're happy to be part of something that's organized in that way.
Councillor?
Right. Well, I don't know about the rest of the council, but I think it would be great to include that user group, not only the cultural center, but there's Cedar Aurora, there's actors, singers, artists within our town, and I'm sure they're being affected by COVID-19 and the effects as well. And hopefully you guys can agree that maybe that's something that we should all look into, forming some sort of discussion group to kind of help and support them. Would council be interested in doing something like that?
I think you would, but we would need a motion, unless you want me to just create a task force. I can simply create a task force, I guess.
Is that the best way to go about it? Just create a task force? I don't complicate things. Is that, I mean, if you can do it, that's great.
I can create a task force, yes. And if council wants to do that, that'd probably be the quickest way to do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would need to put a motion for it. Why don't you and I, Councillor, maybe tomorrow we can sit down and have a discussion, and we can look at what we need to do to put that.
Absolutely. Okay. Perfect. No, the quicker the better. And if it's something, Mr. Mayor, you can we'll have a discussion, and you can put it together. That's fantastic.
Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna, before I go to PSAs for you, Councillor, just everyone, I did get PSAs. Normally I hand them out for you guys, so you guys have at least one thing if you don't have anything to read. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to email you each one, so I'm gonna have a hefty list to read. But if you have any of your own, please do. Hopefully you touch on some of the ones that I have here on the list so I can cross them off. But I will start with Councillor Gilliland. Any PSAs?
Can you come back to me?
Sure. Councillor Gallo?
I wasn't expecting that.
Councillor Gallo, PSAs? No. Councillor Thompson? No. Councillor Kim? No. Councillor Gardner, PSAs?
I suppose the only thing we could all say is that if there are people who are seriously in need, they should be in touch with us.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Humphries, PSA?
Mr. Mayor, just two things. One, as Councillor Gardner mentioned, if anyone needs just to reach out, talk, to find any information, they can speak to us personally. We're here for residents 24/7. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I just wanted to thank all the doctors and nurses, firefighters, police. They've been just like, and grocery store attendants, and cashiers, security guards. It's incredible how they're risking their lives every day for all of us. And I just admire them. You know, I don't go out often, maybe once, twice a week to the grocery store, shoppers, and they're all there smiling and willing to help all of us. And it really is something special. And I don't know if you guys have heard, but EMS, police and paramedics, fire department did a big sort of a thank you around South Lake Hospital for all the nurses and doctors there. They did sort of a parade and had the lights and sirens on, and it was pretty special, pretty spectacular. And I know some people who worked there personally that were very just thrilled by it, and it means the world to them. So if you want to thank, we're all doing that. So they just really appreciate everything. So just wanted to mention that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland, back to you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention the Aurora Chamber, just for some people who may not know how they launched. Like you're part of that. You could probably explain, Mr. Mayor, about the website they launched about shop from home for your local businesses, and I just think it's a great way to help support our local businesses time. And I think it's great everybody's doing takeout and delivery, but let's not forget about some of the businesses that are closed down 100%. And that is a website that was put together called shopfromhomeaurora.ca, which is great. So I encourage residents to go check it out and try and support all our local businesses. And there's also another initiative, and I believe it's called I'm trying to find it, and perhaps Mr. Mayor, you know a little bit more about it, and it was launched called it's a certificate program. So you could go and you could purchase certificates from other businesses who may not be able to be open and deliver. So if there's a favorite business of yours and you want to support them and during this time, you can go and you can purchase a gift certificate of the service. Mr. Mayor, do you remember what that website was? I'm just trying to find it and can't seem to remember what it was called.
Yeah, no, off the top of my head, I can't remember what it's called, but I do know what you're talking about. Yeah, I would just encourage everyone that if they do have a favorite business, I would just reach out to the number of that business. You might be able to get a hold of them and be able to purchase a gift certificate from them directly. So, but yeah, if we can find that, we'll try to see if we can get that out there for people as well.
Okay, perfect. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Stay safe.
All right, now let me go through this long list, so bear with me for a sec. The Skylight Gallery show for April features spring colors by the Society of York Region Artists. Prepare to be dazzled by the kaleidoscope of colors from the Society of York Region Artists palettes. This is a group show with a wide variety of mediums represented, and you can view this gallery online at aurora.ca/skylight gallery. So it's a good online program if people want to check out the artwork. So if you're looking for ways to stay active and engaged, which I think everyone is, while you are social distancing and self-isolating, check out our Recreation at Home webpage that contains a collection of games, activities, and ideas to keep you and your family active at home. And for more details, you can visit aurora.ca/rec@home. Also, the town recognizes the significant impact that the global health crisis COVID-19 has on our community during this difficult time. All levels of government are working together to find solutions to address the challenges citizens and businesses are facing. Community leaders in Aurora have come together to form the Aurora Cares Community Action Team, and this team will assess the emerging needs of the most vulnerable and at risk in our community, such as citizens who become homeless or who are homeless, seniors, disabled persons, and those who rely on food banks. The goal is to help fill the gaps where needed and add to what is already being provided by the provincial and federal government. And for more information on that group, you can visit aurora.ca/Aurora Cares. Councillor Humphreys and Councillor Gardner both sit on that, and they will be meeting tomorrow in the morning. The town of Aurora recognizes the significant impact that the global health crisis has had on our community in regards to our local sports organizations. It's been mentioned by a few right now that the Roundtable of Sport has been created to empower all local sports organizations to work together so we can move things forward. And you can find more information on that at aurora.ca/Roundtable of Sport. And the town of Aurora has partnered with the Aurora Chamber of Commerce and created a specialized task force in regards to helping our business community. And that is the Aurora Business Continuity Task Force. They've met a couple of times now. They are working very hard at looking at how we can help our local business community. And if you want to get more information on that one, that is at aurora.ca/business task force. We also encourage social distancing during this pandemic, and the town of Aurora has closed all public open spaces effective immediately, including parks, tennis courts, skateboard parks, sports fields, baseball diamonds, basketball courts, playgrounds, and the dog park. Trails are still open, but users are strongly encouraged to practice physical distancing. And the town of Aurora has begun strict enforcement of provincial emergency orders and trespassing of municipal closures. Under the provincial guidelines, the town will issue fines to individuals who do not comply with the following emergency orders. No gatherings of more than 5 people, inclusive of gatherings on private property, but excluding family members who reside at the same address. Trespassing in areas that are closed to the public, which includes that list I just mentioned, but I will mention it again: parks, tennis courts, skateboard parks, sports fields, baseball diamonds, basketball courts, playgrounds. Shepherd's Bush is completely closed as per LRC SCA guidelines, and the dog park is closed. Closure of non-essential businesses and price gouging on necessary goods such as hand sanitizers and household cleaners. And for more information, you can visit aurora.ca/COVID-19 for that. And I just want to mention this past weekend, the strict enforcement did begin, and many in our community are abiding by those guidelines and those rules, and they're doing a great job at that, but there's still a few. And the examples through our staff going out there, there was complaints they had to deal with. An outdoor celebration of 17 people happened, which is not acceptable. Visitors from out of town for Easter celebrations. We're all dealing with this. None of us can visit with our families. We're having to do this. So we have to work as a community and do this together. So I encourage everyone to follow those guidelines that are being put out for physical distancing. So please, the faster that we begin to get through this, we can get through this faster. If we continue to not follow these guidelines, not practice physical distancing, the longer it's going to take for us to recover, get our economy back and going. And you hear it from the province, you hear it from the federal government. These measures are being put in place to make our community safer, so we don't lose many of our residents. People are dying out there, and we need to ensure that we do whatever we can to mitigate those impacts. And so, if people die, like it's incredible to think that some people just are not seeing the seriousness of this issue. But I do applaud many in our community who have taken an understanding to how serious this is and the need to practice that physical distancing. And also to protect our community and to help minimize the spread of COVID-19 virus, all town facilities continue to be closed and upcoming town events are canceled and facility rentals suspended until further notice. Town staff are still working diligently to help serve the needs of our community. And if you need any assistance from the town, please call Access Aurora at 905-727-1375, or you can email info@aurora.ca or visit aurora.ca/COVID-19 to access key departmental contacts and frequently asked questions. As Councillor Gilliland mentioned, staff have done a tremendous job in revamping that website. And one last thing I did want to mention as well, our ELT staff, our EOC, our emergency task force, everyone has done a tremendous job. Staff are working around the clock to make sure that our community stays safe. And that there's value, and we're still providing the necessary services to our residents. So I want to applaud every single one of them for the amount of work that they're putting in each and every day for our community. So thank you to all of you for that, and also council. Everyone is working really hard to make sure that we can get through this, and we will get through this together. So thank you. With that said, we are no closed session. I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Gallo, oh, sorry, you got your hand up, Councillor Gallo. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to, Mr. Mayor, clarify for the public, because I'm seeing it happen quite often. In an open space, 2 people throwing a football or frisbee or kicking a ball, is that acceptable?
No. I'll just say straight out, no. No, because what will occur, and this is the thing, and I've had these conversations time and time again with many residents. They say, well, it's just two of us from the same household. It's not an issue. I agree, it's not an issue, but the problem is the area is closed. For them to do that, someone else is going to see it and say it's okay, and then tomorrow you're going to have 5 people doing it, and then you're going to have 10 people doing it, and then 20, and so that's why it has to be nobody. They can walk through the paths, cut through the park if they have to. We encourage that they don't.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that it's you know, we're trying to strike a fine balance between some physical activity and mental health and all of that, but it can get out of control. So I wanted to clarify that.
Oh, absolutely, thank you. Councillor Gardner, do you have something?
Mr. Mayor, I got a letter from an email from a resident, maybe you all did. He saw 5 fellows sitting in one truck. So, I mean, is there, obviously that's not the correct distancing. So what are we supposed to do about something like that? So
you're encouraged to call bylaw. The number that's provided, the 905-727-3123, extension 4240, or you can email the bylaw department. That's all we can do is encourage, because bylaw is out there. As I mentioned, they actually, since March 27th, and this is just off the top, I don't have it in front of me, but since March 27th, they have spoken to almost 1,700 residents in that time, that in regards to violations. And so they're working hard to try to ensure that everyone is following the rules and the guidelines. So we encourage anyone that sees something like that. If you see a vehicle with 5 things and you want to make sure, it could be it could be a whole household. We don't know, but let bylaw know and let the proper authorities know, and they'll go and they'll check it out. And if the case is that it's allowed, if it is a household, then it'll be fine. They can continue to go about their business. But if it's not, they would either be warned or educated. But I think we're at the point now that we're past education, because I think that everyone understands what's going on right now. And I think I think we're past that education part, and we need to be in the part of enforcement. And so they would probably end up issuing a ticket on that.
Well, I didn't think we could issue a ticket for people in cars, but good to know.
It's a gathering of more than 5, yes.
Right. Well, it's 5, but they're pretty close. Anyway.
Well, I can ask Ms. Van Leeuwen. Ms. Van Leeuwen, did you want to just add to that? Would if bylaw went out to that, what would they do? Just so everyone can have an understanding.
Yeah.
Good evening. So it would depend if the vehicle is moving or not moving. We don't currently have the authority to stop moving vehicles. As far as my review of all the emergency orders, it doesn't deal with people in vehicles. It's not specific. However, we would go if the vehicle was stopped and approach it from an education standpoint. Definitely. We are responding to all COVID-19 concerns.
Thank you. While I have you, so somebody else is asking about if property management companies are exempt, and what happens when there's a group of employees raking leaves and blowing leaves, and they're all in close proximity.
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
So from an essential service point of view, the order does speak to maintenance of properties, but it is strictly necessary for safety and sanitation purposes. So it depends on the type of work. I would say, like any landscaping that's being done for beautification of a property, no, that's non-essential. You know, but maybe there's a repair to steps where there's a integrity issue, then that would be essential.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gill, and all those in favor. Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Stay